good. So, well, hey, it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out. I appreciate it.
Oh, good. Likewise. Likewise. It's so fun to meet you. It's been
Yeah.
fun to explore more about you since you originally connected.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I want to begin our conversation before we get into your work with, 4 years ago, we were trying to figure out how long this pandemic was going to last, all the ramifications. How did you survive that time period, and how did it change the way that you do things now?
Oh man, how did I survive? I mean, I was living in New York way back 2020 March, pregnant. That was a fun time. And a lot has changed since. Then I was working full time with an employer. I had 13 years of marketing experience behind my belt, building communities. But I really wanted to do something that would change the game of me just running my own thing. And so a lot was going on. New York, COVID, baby happening, moving to London in between, and now this. But I've always wanted to build my own thing. And so I wanted to find something that was like a niche behind building communities behind your brand. So COVID has helped in a way where you kind of sit back, you can't hang out with as many types of people, but you can creatively think of a way to kind of do something on the side. And so in that way, it was kind of awesome because I had time to reflect versus be able to kind of go out and hang out with people. And so it's escalated quite quickly since then. So I've since moved three different times. No, four if you're counting Austin twice. I moved back to Austin in January and then I've bought a house. So I've moved again. And so it's been a wild ride, but in a way it's been a beautiful ride and I feel like I'm, just hitting my stride.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been good.
So, let's get to the heart and soul of what you do on a daily basis right now. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders. It's career day, and one of the kids says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you
Yeah.
answer him?
So I help companies overcome community growth challenges to attract and engage members. So for a third grader, I helped build fun communities behind people's brands. And so it's been a passion of mine forever. And it's just what I've been doing. And it's now really fun because I help strategically advise and consult with, founders and experts within their field, entrepreneurs on how to go about doing that and if a community is right for your brand. Because a lot of times it's not. So yeah, that's essentially what I do.
So, what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
Ooh, good question. What did I want to be? A dancer?
Right?
I freaking love to dance.
Yeah.
It totally has changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did we get to this point? Take me back to where you were born and raised and how, being community minded and helping people, how did all of that kind of evolve into what you're doing today?
Yeah, it all kind of started with family. So that's a great question. I was born and raised in Indiana. I have three siblings, and by the time I was 18, we were all working together. I was the youngest. And we were all working together on a couple different media sites that at the time, this was before, Pinterest was big, more people were on desktop versus mobile. And it was entertainment media sites where what you wanted was to get views to your site, because that's how you would monetize. But what happened was such this an amazing organic thing for both the women's site and the men's site, where people were meeting offline and creating communities around bigger and better things than just going to a site and getting clicks. And so as a family, two brothers and two sisters, we were seeing this kind of blow up in front of us. And I was inspired by that because it was like, wow, you can have a bigger why behind your brand. And there can be a bigger meaning behind that. So with this particular site, it was no longer a site to me. It was an awesome community that was globally reaching people where they were meeting offline, and building connections and raising money behind their local charity to connect and engage. And that's what brought the bigger why. Why is such a brand like this so much more important than just getting clicks and visits to a site to monetize? And so those people inspired me to continue to kind of do that for other brands, which has led me fast forward to where I am now. But being able to work with siblings was super fun and awesome, and it actually worked out really, really well. And that was my first step from, college to, the real world. And you've heard probably horror stories of working with your family, and vice versa, of it working out. And I have the story of it actually working out really well, and having a community of people to inspire me to kind of lead in that way, and having a bigger why behind your brand. So pretty much every single thing since that I've worked for, um, behind building communities, whether it be e-commerce, whether it be media, whether it be career communities, are such a fun one. How do you get career communities into a thing? Because not everybody's looking for a job all the time. There's so many ways that you want to retain members. Um, After they're doing that click kind of thing.
Yeah.
A lot of people love to celebrate when you get like an email address to your your mailing list. And the fact of the matter is that's not a community. You have to connect and engage with one another. And how do you get that to help with your business and the ROI of that, and reducing churn, but getting people excited to be a part of your brand, which is not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
But it's so special when you find kind of like a click like that. So fast forward today, 2 years ago, I created my own company, which is Rise Community Consulting. And yeah, I work with CEOs, entrepreneurs, experts that have something. They may have an email list, they might have some kind of brand marketing. For podcasts specifically, how do you get your audience listeners to not only click on your transcript or your call to action, or somebody who's the guest or host of what you're trying to actually market? A lot of the wins of what people celebrate is, you got that conversion, you got their email, you got a listen or whatever, but it's the real true beauty is how are you onboarding them into becoming something more? And so it's case by case by each brand. Yeah.
So I'm curious, you're inspiring people. It's a big task. So at the end of the day, who's been a role model or a hero for you in your life?
Oh my God. Well, funny enough, my siblings to begin with, they're all entrepreneurial. And then my dad as well. They all have created their own businesses. Every single one of them, my dad, my two brothers, and my sister. So they've actually been like, if they can do it, why can't I? And so to be able to have that within my own family, gave me the push to kind of just go and do it yourself, which I think is, couldn't be one of the scariest things, is actually just believing in yourself and doing it. But being surrounded by it, I've been really lucky in that regard, because as being the youngest, I got to see everybody else successfully do it. And it's like, if they can do it, I can do it too. So they've all been my role models. It sounds so silly. I wish I could say, I'm sure you get responses where it's like this particular celebrity or whatever, it's just like, it's not, it's actually who I've been surrounding myself with to begin with, has been my role model, which is cool.
So if you could meet anybody alive on the planet right now that you find inspirational, whether in your field of work or otherwise, who would that be? Who would you love to meet and talk to?
Ah, this is going to be I'm in between like a female comedian between like Kristen Wiig and Amy Poehler, or like Sheryl Sandberg, which I know, like, like you could go the full business route of like how do you build like wonderful female audiences between, and I know that that's like kind of saying Sheryl Sandberg is a yay or nay in some people's minds, but she's done incredible work as far as women's communities outside of that, and a lot of what I do is helping with women's communities specifically. And so how do you go about doing that, and the books that she's written and all of that? But man, do I just love comedy and awesome people that are just wonderful in that regard. So I guess I'll say Sheryl Sandberg, on the business route. But if I want to laugh, then
Yeah,
probably Kristen.
yeah, I dig it. So
Yeah.
let me ask you a question. You have to give a lot of yourself in your job to help clients out, but you also have to retain some back to evolve as a human being. What is that collective energy for you? What gets you up every day? What gets you to do the work that you do at a high level? What is that for you?
So I would say that, working with brands that are passionate about what they're doing, like there's so many people that you can work with, and that's great. And just to get the money is great, but I never want to work with somebody who isn't excited about what they're doing, and having kind of a bigger why behind what they're doing. I love the community aspect of it because it's, getting people motivated in a way that, they may not necessarily have within their brand and teaching them about that, like different ways as far as like what has worked with you. If you want to launch a community, what does that look like? What are the phases behind that? Which is actually a lot. There's 10 different phases that like before you even relaunch a community, what that looks like. So educating, I would say, is it gets me excited the most when I'm speaking to people in a way that, might be helpful and beneficial. And then also I failed kind of a lot throughout the years, like what not to do. It's like a lot of times you feel like you're throwing paint at a wall and seeing if it sticks. And that's still true with building a community because you want to be different from everybody else. But so there's that creative aspect of it, which is super fun. But having so many years behind it, knowing things that really just absolutely don't work, and cutting through the years of trying to attempt it, and just get straight forward to it, is great. But the value that your community brings, I would also say, is so 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 important. Like, what are the values that you can have for, is it membership signups? Is it increased customer retention? Is it brand awareness? Is it retention and satisfaction, account expansion? There's so many different things that it can be so overwhelming. So if you are focused fully on, just like taking one of the many that brings value back into your community and bringing that in the forefront first and foremost, it's so important because you can get lost so easily as trying to do too many things at once. So being able to simplify and scale is big.
What's been one of your favorite client success stories?
Ooh, um, I would say I'm going to go back to a career community. There's a couple of them, but specifically a career community for women in tech. Right now, actually, I'll give an example. I'm working with a career community of women in tech, and it's so awesome to see. They started with a brand, an awesome, incredible. A brand where people are going to their website and seeing them. They're very well known, but they didn't have a safe and supportive place to kind of connect and engage. And one of the big things is knowing what kind of community you want and where they should be, and asking your audience, asking your email list is so it's such an awesome way to get the North Star as far as what type of community it should be. They'll tell you, your email audience will tell you, your listeners will tell you, they can help you shape what that is. And you're getting data in a way that you can then do a competitive analysis on what other communities are to make sure that it's not aligned. So once you get what it is and why it should exist, which we have done, building that out and launching it in a way that your listeners are hearing you and they're excited to be a part of it. So with this career community, how can you build something where you're not always looking for jobs, but how can you have a bigger why? And this bigger why is, there's a gender gap between, the amount of women in tech versus not, right? And so like how can companies hire women in tech? How can you find those people? So you're working on both a B2B and B2C side. B2B is like getting accessibility into community members in a way that's super special to be able to hire and recruit them or just to be able to connect with them. But then there's a B2C side, which is like, why are people sticking around? And it's a bigger common mission as far as getting more women in tech to begin with. It's big for me because I'm an informatics background major. And I remember, I had an auditorium filled with, hundreds of men and there were three women. And, there weren't that many women in tech to even attempt to get that. So how can we get that in a way where it comes full circle, starting with universities and ending with experts to help one another through mentorship? So there's those retention programs that are so important to educate and engage members. So I would say that's like my most exciting one and one that I'm super passionate about it because of my background and being a woman and being in tech. Yeah.
So, what's been the biggest growth period in your career? I mean, you're doing. I mean, I would imagine these projects take quite a bit. But what was the one part of your career, your life, where you grew the most?
Living in London, having to quit my job full time to move to London for my husband's role, knowing I've always wanted to start something. Um, but also didn't know exactly how to go about doing that. I learned so much by the amount of podcasts I've listened to of how to start your own company, how to actually consult and sell yourself, which is like, I'm not a salesperson, I'm a marketing person, which helps in a way, but like, how do you actually believe in yourself to sell yourself? How do you market that in a way that, you can price out your expertise to other people? It has been in the last 2 years to answer your question because I have grown so much. I get to work with so many people and so many clients, first one, and I get to utilize my time in a way that I'm making the most I've ever made, in a way that I get to enjoy more time not working. Like there's so many perks as far as you can work an overload and be so stressed and have your own company and, never sleep. But the work-life balance has never been better. And same with the salary. So that the last 2 years.
Yeah. What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
Life begins at the end of your comfort zone. And I really fully think that that's true. And being able to take leaps such as this has paid off big time. But really, same with just traveling and, living life, doing stuff, meeting people, just getting outside of your comfort zone, whether it's travel, your job, um, you know, doing something you've never done before. It's just, I love the awkwardness of doing stuff like that, but it's also terrifying in some ways. So getting out of my comfort zone is the life motto that I love to live by.
So of everything that you've done and evolved into at this point, what are you the proudest of?
Well, that's a tough one because now I have 2 kids, so I gotta say,
Right, of course.
building tiny humans,
Yeah,
which holy cow, that's hard.
yeah.
So yeah, that would probably be it. I know that doesn't align, but man, kids are cool. Yeah, creating that has been pretty awesome, and being able to do that and hopefully be able to inspire my daughter to do something like this, like, I wanna build a path where, she feels like she can do stuff, and, like, I hope that I'm helping build the ground basis for being able to do that as hopefully an inspiration and leader to her. I hope I can be her role model like my siblings are.
Yeah.
To
So speaking of youth, let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the 18-year-old version of you. You can give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the life you've led, the wisdom you've gained along the way. What advice would you impart, and would that version of you listen?
Would they listen at 18? That's tough.
Ah,
Yeah. I would say I would say that your 20s especially are all about just trial and error. Like you may not know what you want to be in your 20s and in fact even your 30s, and you can pivot at any given point where you're at and where you want to be. And so there's not one, path that you need to take. But knowing that your 20s is all about just trying to figure out, I wish that I kind of knew that at the time, because I feel like when you're graduating, the first thing you wanna do is like, "Well, what do you wanna be when you like, what are you doing for your life?" And that's the worst question, and I'm not doing what I did then, and it's changed so drastically, but, it's pivoting and changes throughout your 20s, I think is, like, just being okay with that. 20s it's fun, but man, not knowing
yeah,
was tough for me. So I wish I knew that, and I hope I would listen and know
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Now.
Well, it takes a while to figure it out, that's for sure. And that it's a perfect lead into my next question, which is everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, everyone around you. But you run
Yeah.
the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I hope very approachable, and very honest, and loving, because that's all I'm trying to be, and really just authentic. I want to just be my true self, and so I hope that that's what people think of me. I don't know.
Yeah. So let's say we get off this call, a time
Yeah.
machine pulls up, and you can go anywhere in the history of humans and see one event with your own eyes. Where are you going?
Ooh, gosh, that's really, really, gosh, I don't, oh, that I don't, that is, I'm not prepared for that.
Oh, no.
There's so much history.
I
Oh my
know.
gosh.
It's like the beginning of the Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
Eh,
Well, when did that s yeah, like, what freaking happened?
right.
If I knew the answer to that, that would really, really help.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I don't know, I mean, like, living in Europe, I al like, especially, like, being surrounded by all of these wonderful, like, statues and just being able to be surrounded by history, like, is there a particular one? It's so hard to answer, oh my gosh, I don't know, I think, like, it'd be fascinating. I love history of war too, so just being there as far as, like, the end of, like, World War II, what did that look like? I don't know, it sounds so silly, but, like, to be able to witness something like that and what happens post that, especially having grandparents within the war, being able to kind of understand their lives a little bit different, I know that that sounds so kind of weird and morbid, but I would love to be able to know what that was like, especially
Yeah.
for our generations above. So I'm gonna go with that.
Okay, I like it. So if anyone out there wants to reach out, hire you, learn more about what you're doing, any of the good business, where's the best place to go?
You can head to my LinkedIn, Megan Smolen, or risecommunityconsulting.com. That's like the best way to those two are the best ways to contact me and learn a little bit more about me. But yeah, I would say those
Yeah.
places.
I love what you're doing because when I think about like even a town like Kansas City and even Austin, as much as it's growing, a lot of that growth and a lot of that relevancy comes from people that are really into where they're at and helping build that community up. It's very essential. And it's such a back end thing that people don't think about, but it's essential to how cities rise to prominence and become relevant and become lasting and a place that people want to go to or, be a part of.
Yeah, Kansas City's fun.
It is. Yeah,
Yeah.
it didn't hurt us to have Mahomes on his horsemen, but at the end of the day, yeah, there's a lot going on. You don't wanna get pigeonholed being a cow town. In fact, we just went to, Oklahoma City recently, and they remind me of Kansas City. There's a lot of what they've done. They've built up, they got a lot going on, and I think that, the key to that is community building, and it's a big deal.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's great to hear.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your time and story, and keep doing the wonderful work out there.
Likewise, so great to meet you. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me. This was fun.
absolutely. Great to meet you. Take care.